Hi, hey, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you stopping on by to my little corner of the internet. This week, if you can hear noise in the background, it is actually probably my brother losing his mind over Pokemon cards, not my animals. However, what I actually really want to do and wanted to do this week was kind of experiment and kind of prepare for Drawtober a little bit. I'm not 100% certain how I'm going to approach Drawtober, if I'm going to do a more Inktober sort of thing. And so I really wanted to sit down and just do a cute little, uh, little ink to drawing kind of thing in my sketchbook with my two OCs. And then I had a very specific experiment I wanted to run with the Arctic's paint pens. And so I'm going to discuss that, why I wanted to do it, and kind of get into that a little bit more in just a minute. But real quick, the YouTubey thingies, if you at any point really think you want to see more of my content, feel free to subscribe at any point in the video. If you like the art that I end up making, be sure to like it or comment any thoughts and opinions you have along the way. As per usual, if you draw alongside me, I would love to hear about it down below. And if you're interested in sharing it, I have Instagram. I don't get to the request every day, so you can send it to me over there, tag me in it. I love to see it. I really do believe that creativity is a form of self-love, so be sure to share it wherever you want to share it. And with that, let's get into the actual kind of topic. So my OC Nameless is kind of a self-insert character that I had made a really long time ago, who has now evolved into its own individual character beyond what I had originally designed her for. She's no longer as much a self-insert and a character that I made to put myself in a universe, and more so a character that has developed a story beyond what I had originally intentioned, as she's kind of grown up in my mind as I've become a better artist over the years. She's developed into something more, and I've kind of let loose of this character, and I'm smacking my mic. Originally she was supposed to emulate me a bit in appearance and physique, and that hasn't completely changed. Her style hasn't really changed beyond what was originally intended for her based on how I dressed. She remains physically kind of similar to me when her entire story and the life she lives and the plot and how she interacts with characters is no longer kind of defined by how I do it. So she is eternally stuck as a short character. And Vivian, my other OC, he's rather tall. He's kind of closer to the 6 foot tall. So you're very, very stereotypical and basic short and tall kind of character dynamic. Eris is somewhere around 5'9", so she's the one that's sleeping in the bottom right corner over there, but you can't really tell her physical features particularly well, and I'll get to that sketch later. But so one of the kind of main issues I encounter in not necessarily my day-to-day life, because I don't really go grocery shopping or shopping anymore, but when I am in a public place and I need something, I have to climb the shelves to get things because I'm too short. I can't reach maybe the second shelf upward for the most part. I'm 5 foot tall. And so I saw this really, really funny little picture of this person standing on their friend to reach the top shelf, and it felt very indicative of the dynamic that these two characters have. I've drawn other kind of sketches of this kind of thank you, you're welcome kind of dynamic they have, where there is either a sarcastic kind of play to it, this thanks for doing this to me, wow, thank you so much, I really appreciate this, and the kind of you're welcome, and then the thank you, this is literally the most inconvenient thing I could have asked you to do. And Vivian is a highly intelligent individual, considering, being a Victorian age character who has lived throughout the centuries now. He is intelligent and he knows how to function in modern society, but Nameless being kind of a little bit more difficult to communicate with, being very scatterbrained, very short attention span, brain fog, kind of like I am, makes her hard to communicate with. It makes it hard for her to articulate what she wants, what she needs. And so it's very in nature of their dynamic of, instead of him being able to conveniently grab it, it's just let me grab it myself, um, kind of thing. It's no, I don't want that one. No, I don't want that one. I want the other one, the one that's next to the thing on the shelf, next to the other thing. It's very much got that kind of dynamic where it's hard for her to just read the label and say, this is what I want. It's more so just she can't process the information in the moment. Which is also very indicative of me. She, being a self-insert, she has kind of maintained the kind of mental health component of her character that defined her, but and she's maintained her physical component in terms of her disability and her chronic illness. But it has evolved. I do kind of lean toward the different diagnosis for her than what mine currently is, what mine is. But, it's very in their dynamic. It's very much, why is this the solution for two otherwise intelligent beings? Well, Nameless is a character who has a hard time communicating and articulating what she wants. She is well educated. She's an intellectual, well read. She's a scientist. She is pretty book smart. However, she's really not life smart. She's really not street smart. It's like, do you push the walk across the street button and she just keeps going just right into the traffic. She doesn't have that kind of social awareness that's almost more valuable for society, if you know what I mean. I really think that there is a level of academics that can be very good for a large variety of people. Most people can value from some level of education beyond high school. I do think a high school education is important where it can be achieved just for those kind of basic skills, the basic English skills, the basic science understanding, sexual health, biology. College and career readiness classes are legally required in my state for a high school diploma unless you're McKinney-Vento, which means you are homeless or not living with people who have legal custody of you. So, college and career readiness, those things can be really important and really valuable because there's very few people who don't go to college or go into a career, right? Those are people who are in the kind of minority. And even then, a lot of the people who are in that minority want a career or want to go to college, right? Nobody wants to never work and never gain an education solely out of their pure interest. People want to learn things. They want to get good at something. Even if you kind of fall into the stereotype of being a stay-at-home mom in the basement, lazy gamer, you still kind of have an aspiration. You want to learn and get good at something and generally can try to make a career out of that thing. At least that's my opinion. I think people who have a hobby that they dedicate all of their life to, that they don't really participate in society, could probably make a career out of it. For people whom are like them and want to see people like them in the world. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like you can support yourself. But this is kind of a long tangent for a very niche kind of issue, but I feel like that kind of life smart is substantially more important for the most part. Well, I have a college degree. I have 2 college degrees. I got a minor. I'm getting my master's degree. I want to be a college professor of art, I'm an educated person. I completely lack street smarts. I'm literally incompetent. I still have zero idea how big a block is. It makes no sense to me. It is not a standardized distance, and I cannot for the life of me conceptualize it. And so I really lack this kind of understanding that is kind of fundamental for normal human functioning. I require somebody to hold my hand to cross the street because I will just get hit by a car. Even though I push the button with my elbow so I don't get the germs on me, and I wait in areas where there just isn't a light, I feel like no matter how many times I look both ways, next thing I know, there's a car about to hit me. I'm really, really low functioning when it comes to societal involvement. I very much lack these kind of common knowledge for people who live in a very, not industrialized, that's not the word, city area. I can't think of the word for it. But, uh, Nameless has that kind of component to her because it was a hard thing. She never grew out of it in terms of her developing as a character. Well, the way she interacts with people, the level of dependency she has, the values she holds and the morals she holds are not the same as mine for sure. That kind of aloofness and lack of understanding to this very, very basic thing. To me, it feels so basic, and yet I can't understand it. I can't get there for some reason. That's something she's maintained as well, and so I think it creates a really fun dynamic between Vivian, who is both intellectual and academically smart, but street smart because he has had to live this life and grow with time, grow with the century. He's watched as society has changed and as these things have been invented and thus implemented, right? He's been here since before streetlights and cars and all of that, right? He was there when it became a part and was being implemented into a broader society, right? And that's something that I find is really fun to kind of approach. Because while he does have his ignorance and naivety to kind of human emotion, that's where he falls short as a character. That's his kind of quote-unquote flaw, is his inability to really grasp and understand how other people might be feeling. He really needs someone to break down and be straightforward with him about emotions. He has a hard time reading people. He is generally really intelligent, also a scientist. He literally is immortal because of his own invention. While an accident and he doesn't want this immortality, he is the one that created the thing that came to this moment. You know what I mean? Like, and he was there and he managed it. I can't articulate myself well, I'm so sorry. But it's such an interesting dynamic because he's, in a sense, the babysitter of her in public so that she doesn't get hit by a car, and she's kind of the babysitter of emotions. And then Eris is generally a really well-rounded character. She understands human emotion, she's empathetic, she has an education enough that she can kind of navigate situations. It's not your standard college education. She really just doesn't understand that whole kind of English and science thing. She didn't do great in her classes and dropped out, right? But she is very good at kind of the critical thinking, very good communicator. She's very enigmatic. She very much catches a crowd, right? Public speaking is the only class she probably would ever get an A in, right? And that's something I've really enjoyed about them as a character, is that they're very much intellectually not quite on the, like, let's read books about science together, but still can, like, read with them and enjoy kind of more nerdy, not so, like, quote-unquote fun, friendly things, It's very much that introverted. She can participate. They can kind of settle down and do the introverted thing with those two. However, she also has the capacity to pull all three of them out in public, be the extrovert, and kind of navigate society. They're the character you want to take to a country where you have to bargain for purchases, right? They'll get you down to the lowest price possible without it being basically a crime. It's just like, they're so good at that component. They're very well-rounded in a kind of socially, almost manipulative sort of way, but they use it with good intentions. Think MLM cult leader. Like, they could definitely be the head of a cult and definitely could get people to do horrible things that go against their morals, but they're not a nutcase, right? But that's something I very much like about Eris as a character. They're all of these things, but they very much are kind of Murphy's Law. Being the incarnate of chaos, they are incapable, no matter how hard they work to acquire, like, a greater understanding of things, to try and avoid their unfortunate circumstances, these tragedies, these accidents that just kind of befall them. It's physically impossible, I like to think that the reason Aerith went to college was they thought that they could avoid some of these situations if they got an education in more things that might be like the quote-unquote reasoning behind it. Why is it that every time I go out, there's a car accident? I guess I have to take crash site analysis. Why is it that, like, every single time I leave the house, I get nailed in the face by some weird thing falling out of the sky? Maybe I should just take physics and try and figure it out. And no matter how hard they try, while they don't do great in the classes, they can't avoid the situations that keep befalling them. They are a creature of chaos. They're chaos incarnate, and it's drawn to them. And so everybody has their kind of strength, you know? Aerith has her communication, their human emotion thing. Vivian is kind of street smart and an intellectual, kind of balances that out. And then Nameless is just very, very empathetic to a fault, very emotional, very sensitive as a character, very easily upset by things, but they are very much just brain. Like they're very what's the word? They're not arrogant. Naive? Naive isn't the word, because I think Nameless as a character is very crude and very vulgar in their vocabulary. She's very much not a naive person in those senses, but very sheltered, I guess, from the ways of the world. And it creates such a nice and fun dynamic that I really enjoy out of all of them. And it's just something that I love it so much. The dynamic of my OCs is something that just brings me so much joy. It's hard not to just want to talk about them for hours. I love them so much, you know? And that's what you want out of an OC that you can't stop thinking about, that you're so invested in the lives in that you want to know more, learn more, and therefore create more, right? And so I'm hoping to drawtober prompts come out the day after this video goes live, which is tomorrow, because I went to the foot doctor today, and I need to do the video, basically all of the audio in one night. Let's see how this works out. But the drawtober prompts will be coming out very soon, so I'll be making a community post about that to kind of express if I'm starting drawtober earlier, like following the September kind of guideline, drafting things up and prepping videos in advance-ish, and then finishing them in October, sketches and things. Or if I'm thinking, I am considering doing a inktober series, but a very cutesy, very simple ink approach. So I'm pretty torn between doing all 6 drawtober prompts. I think it's 6 every year. I only did drawtober for the first time last year, so I'm not 100% certain. But doing all 6 prompts, really doing like a full illustration of some kind. My actual traditional 5x8 size is about the biggest I go anymore. I'm torn between that and doing really, really simple, quick, scannable, like ink doodles. I'm hoping to and planning to do a little digital and traditional Zodiac cat, kind of one of those meme series, just because I want to practice drawing cats, and what better way to do it than to come up with kind of an absurd theme, you know, like those videos on social media. I sound old when I say it like that, but I'm not old. Like unironically, I'm not old, but you know, the like tap to see what cat you are. I kind of want it, or what cat are you based on your birth month? I want to do that. Or based on your zodiac sign or birth month. I want to do something like that. I want to do like half of October just based on doing these cute little ink cat drawings, and maybe like doing little ink drawings of cat memes or my cats or something like that, since I have 11 if you include Stray Cat Stanley. So yeah, I just, it sounds really cute, and it's something I really want to do. My brother's screaming about shiny Pokemon right now. Wowza, I shouldn't have abandoned him at all. I helped him take his entire Pokemon binder apart earlier, and I put them in stacks based on type and rarity, and now he's putting them away and he's losing it, but that's okay. Anyway, circling back, because I'm so easily distracted, the only issue with the Zodiac themes is I know nothing about Zodiacs. The only thing I know about Zodiacs is that people of my sign shouldn't date people of my sign, and I know that because someone told me that I should break up with my partner because we're the same zodiac sign. Long story short, our 7-year anniversary is on October, and I think we're fine. Um, and I have there's a family friend who's the same sign as me, right? And so she's very into it. Our birthdays are like 2 days apart. She's so ecstatic to like talk as if we were like born from the same womb, even though like she's an adult and friends with my mom, right? Like she's so into it, which like good for her, right? Her whole house is themed around her zodiac sign, right? Like no joke. She lives on the beach because she's a water sign, right? She's all in, and great, good for her. I hate sand. If I had sand in my house, I would lose my mind. Every time we had to stay at her house as a kid, I would have to sleep with like a jacket on and a hood over my hair because the sand would make me lose my mind. I can't do the texture of it. It drives me bonkers, right? So anyway, to each their own. And I know that she also talks about her sign a lot, and that my partner is everything that my sign is not, like the absolute antithesis, exact opposite. And long story short, Google says that our relationship's gonna fail because we're both Pisces, but that's fine. I really don't believe in zodiacs that much, and the kind of like predetermination it kind of creates around people, which is something I'm very interested in, like on a psychological level. Like, does knowing our zodiac sign kind of predispose us to the idea of how we should turn out as people, and that's why zodiac signs as a generality kind of work? Or is it actually something? You know what I mean? It's something that I find very interesting. However, I'm not personally of the belief of it. I don't believe in like basing our thoughts of people and our biases and opinions of them based on their sign personally. To each their own, though. I'm not gonna knock people for what they do. However, I do find them conceptually really interesting, and I really like the general themes you can get out of them. So on an artistic level, I find them really fun, which also makes me worried that like maybe I'm some sort of imposter, because like I don't believe in it, but I find it really interesting. I'm sure this is probably enough about my weird nonsense, and there's definitely a lot more to talk about now. I haven't quite got to the experiment that I'm running. However, I am very excited about the inking, and there was a big break where I was working on it off camera because I got really intense hand pain and I needed to take a break, and I just worked on it a little bit during a work meeting, right? But I've talked about it quite a few times on my channel, so if you've heard the spiel before, I'm sorry. Inking is my love. It is my passion. I love inking. I love basic ink work. And I have an extra affinity for inking and keeping the sketch underneath. Like when I'm in a traditional setting and I'm not planning on adding color, I prefer a very messy, hatchy ink approach that would look bad if I erase the under kind of sketch, but I like that blue showing through and that red, because I do use that photo. I did get in the habit of using the photocopy blue and the photocopy red, so like when you scan it, it doesn't pick it up, right? I got in that habit when I took comics, because it made my life easier and I got to cheat out on erasing. But I kind of have maintained such an affinity for the way it looks. I genuinely prefer it over just having straight ink work most of the time. And while I can do much nicer ink work and get rid of it, I like it stylistically more. I like the blue. I like it having more than just the black and the white. And I do go in and I add shadows in pen later that I'm super happy with. I really like it, but I really like the way it looks, and I can't think of a grocery store aisle, and I didn't feel like looking up a reference because I was in a work meeting when I did the original sketch too. That's why I didn't do it on camera. Also, the video would have been really long, and my videos are long enough. I think I need to cut them down as is, so the last thing you needed was me sketching the thing, right? But that as an aside, I couldn't think of like, oh, what's in a grocery aisle together, and I really said in my head, baguettes, round bread, and sauces. Which, like, maybe in like an ethnically themed aisle, they would have like special breads related to that culture, and then like sauces and like beverages related to the thing. We do have an Asian aisle in our local grocery store that kind of has a similar kind of thing to it, but instead it's just 50,000 brands of microwave noodles. And things like that. So, I mean, like, thematically, like, maybe it could work, but I've never seen a French aisle, and so I have no idea if they just have, like, really stereotypical baguettes and then, like, French-themed beverages. I don't know. So, grocery aisle accuracy, none. 0. I couldn't do it. I should have got a reference, but I didn't. But that's not the end of the world. It could have been worse. And frankly, the aisle, you probably wouldn't have even realized how thematically wrong it was if I didn't talk about it, right? So is it really that bad? Not really. And so what's the problem? I like the way it looks. It doesn't matter if it's stupid. There's an artist I really, really like. I will put their name in the description and comment and pin it because I really like their work, and they do very good kind of condensed, it's not like cubic themed, but very very satisfying, visually appealing, like simple settings, like, but they're isolated. Like, it's not the whole grocery store. It would be like the character picking something from the shelf, right? Like, nothing else would be around. And that's something I really enjoy stylistically. I like when you capture that moment without all of the background noise. While I also like full scenes that are super interactive and super thorough in depth, and I love looking at people do the process, doing all the little inking, the hatching, the coloring. It's something that I find so remarkable. It's really nice to see it in isolation as well. So I'll put I don't know their gender identity off the top of my head, so I'm going to put their information down below. I have 2 of their art books, so I clearly really like their work. I really think their name is Daisuke off the top of my head, but I will make sure to completely confirm that before going any further. As an aside, though, I think it looked really nice at the end. The blue felt so satisfying, and while I was waiting for the paint to dry on the right page, I started inking the little kind of head on head kind of, I was worried about you, it's just a grocery shelf, like, I'm not gonna die. I literally am completely fine. I literally stood on top of you. What's the worst that's going to happen? Using you as a step stool in a public setting? Seriously? And that's another component of Vivian's character that I've been enjoying working through, because his wife died in his pursuit to find a cure for her. He became immortal, and he's burdened with not only her passing, but not being able to save her, and then blessing himself, quote unquote, he hates immortality, but blessing himself with a longer life, an extended life that he couldn't give to her, right? And so he has this kind of like overprotective nature, not necessarily a fear that like if you touch granite outside your house you're gonna spontaneously combust. It's not like a phobia or a genuine mental illness kind of thing, you know, for people who have like agoraphobia, and people who like are genuinely scared to like touch things. It's not like that, but it is a paranoia and something that is kind of a trauma response that he as a character has to go through the process of working through, right? Part of reopening his heart to have these 2 friends in the first place, because they're not dating. Maybe. But part of the process of acquiring this bond and having these people in his life is having to learn to not be overbearing and overprotective to a point where it's toxic and it's an unhealthy relationship, and he's doing bad by them by wanting to do good by them, right? He has to learn the boundaries, and that's something that I really enjoy exploring as a character, because I can understand and relate to the idea of wanting to protect somebody and wanting to protect them to a point where it's unhealthy. And, you know, I don't engage in that, and I don't behave that way, and I don't engage with that kind of protective to a fault behavior, but I can relate to it, and it's something that I can now explore artistically and thematically in the story. But I get to explore those feelings and those emotions and those thoughts in a safe and healthy manner, right? Like, that's another thing that's very valuable to me about art, is being able to approach processing feelings and emotions that I know aren't good to process and feel in real life, right? Like, I know that they are feelings that you need to deal with in a very safe, confined way and not actually act on them, right? And that's something that I really enjoy about art, because I don't have to engage in ways that I don't want to, but feel compelled to, right? And maybe that's a compulsive issue thing, like an inability to just to not, you know what I mean? Like, I need to have some sort of outlet for these ideas and these themes, and I do that through art and creation and storytelling in my head, because I don't write my stories down because I'm a nut. And I want to taunt myself with forgetting the information, but it's a very healthy and cathartic method, And I don't engage in any themes that go to an extreme where they can really damage people by engaging with my art, right? I don't have any interest or desires that are actually genuinely dangerous or terrible. However, everybody has like vices, and mine is just wanting to bubble wrap my partner before he leaves the house, right? Like, I would never actually make him stay home, and I would never actually confine him to the safe life indoors, but it's compelling, and I feel that way about my cats as well. It's just like, I want to put you in a magical bubble where you can live forever and you will never come in contact with dust that can hurt you ever. Right? Because the dust is gonna kill, I swear. And that's a joke, that's a joke, a complete joke. I do have a dust allergy, but nothing that's like fatal. Just makes breathing hard. But and so I like to engage in it that way, and I like to do that through Vivian as a character because he has a background that was pre-existing, and the fault just comes so naturally with that background, right? The fault comes with the trauma and the things he's gone through, and it's very, very effective. And my house is so loud on Friday nights. I am so sorry, but there's no other time to do this because I'm not waking up in time. I can hardly wake up in time to watch my video if I wanted to live. No, I'm not getting up in time to finish this, so I'm really sorry about the audio. I am gonna try to cut it out, but this week is just gonna be a mess, and that's okay. At this point in the drawing, it's also just a horrible mess. Having painted back over the face, she very much was starting to look not great. She almost looked better before I add the eyebrows back in, so, maybe savor this for a second with no features, because it gets a little bit messier somehow. But it's okay. And this is just kind of part of the process that I'm trying to go through. However, I was really not in the mood for my liner to not die, but keel over and go temporarily out of commission, take a sick leave this week. And it was very much not wanting to reactivate no matter how many times I scribbled over the same spot in the top corner, which is not great. I don't actually know any solutions for fixing a pen other than scribbling. However, like with an alcohol marker, you can just put some more alcohol in it and you can revive it and zhuzh it up. However, with the micron, I don't really know what to do. This is a micron brand, but it's water-based, so I assume maybe like dipping the tip in water might help. I'm thinking maybe actually rubbing alcohol could help clean the tip, but it might permanently mess up the ink. I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to do some researching into that because I've had these pens since I started high school. I use a different set of liners for very specific ink illustrations a lot of the time, and because like I have like a pencil bag with different liners than my desk liners, and I did a lot of drawing throughout high school on the go, so they've lasted a long time, and I can't imagine that they're very happy internally at this point, but I'm gonna run them till their death. I wish they were refillable, which, like, honestly, why aren't micron pens refillable in some fashion? Like, we do refillable alcohol markers, we have refillable kind of options for a lot of pens. You know, we have mechanical pencils. Why can't we do refillable, like artist grade fine liners that are affordable-ish, right? Like these are like cheap fine liners. These artist liners. I think that might actually be what the brand is called, right? I don't have any preference towards like a brand in terms of like fine liners. You know, if they do what a fine liner is supposed to do, they don't smudge once they dry. Why do I care? Well, don't smudge with the right medium once they dry. Why do I care, right? What brand it is. If they do their job, they do their job. Um, and that is giving some facts. Like, I've never had a brand that was particularly dry and like not useful, or I had to do too many layers over it, things like that. So, you know, that opinion could change if I find a brand I really don't like. But I I really just feel like you should be able to pop the back of this barrel off and put in more ink or something, or pull out a very particular cartridge type that runs to the tip. But I guess when it comes to a lot of pens, the tip breaks, especially when you get to like the .005s and the .001s. So at that point, you'd probably need like replaceable tips just aren't a good method. So I don't know. Maybe that just, I know there's a way to engineer it. There's a way to make everything, but would it be a good product is a different question. People would buy it if you like branded it around sustainability, which, you know, greenwashing and kind of forcing things to be sustainable when they might not be, and they might just be a worse quality product as like not something I condone, but like theoretically you could market it. But this is such a bad tangent. No wonder people stop watching my videos halfway through. Not all of you. I know some of y'all are here. But my watch time is like, it cuts around 10 minutes in, and I understand why, because I talk about dumb stuff. But yeah, anyway, it'd just be so much nicer to have a cartridge, a refillable cartridge that's like biodegradable, or like a reusable cartridge on the inside, like with a fountain pen, because like the fountain pen tip just is a little bit more difficult for me to work with, and I'm not adept at it, so it's alrighty. So one of these things that I wanted to test out was just how many times could I layer over the face before it started to do damage to the paper, because the sketchbook is actually not very complete. I have not made as much progress as it might seem like I have. I don't really know how it looks to like other people, but I have a lot more to go, right? And so I'm planning to use these paint pens a lot. I'm really in love with them. And I do change my medium pretty like seasonally, not like actually with the seasons, but I will just have like I have a thing. I need to use this medium, and then I like calm down. I get over the obsession for a minute. I revert back to another medium I really like and kind of cycle through that way. So I might go back to marker art and do like a quarter of the sketchbook in marker without using much paint pen at all. But I want to test the limits of these paint pens because they are so new to me. And I'm going to have to do the same thing with markers if I do kind of fall into a marker bit of time artistically while using the sketchbook, because I really need to see just how many layers can I do before it's like really messing up the paper, it's causing damage, it's going to be worse for the art than not. And so I just kind of kept layering the face, and eventually I had smeared so much paint in doing these layers that I just went back over it, and that was about the final layer. It was already starting to pill a little bit, too much for my liking, get gunky in a way that's like not gonna look good. It's gonna probably cause paint to smear on the other page, you know, cause those sorts of issues. And so I stopped at that. So I'm thinking maybe 3-ish layers is the best max, so that you can have the fourth one for touching up the face and doing all of those kind of more fun things. I drew this a little bit too small to really get those kind of like dimensions and additions to the face that I like to add with the little hues and stuff, and my layers were not like helping me to kind of have that approach. So that was kind of experiment one that I wanted to do, and I did just a cute little sleeping character, or not sleeping, her eyes are open, but just kind of lounging, relaxing. I wanted to do a different pose. I very much want to draw more characters in bed. Partially because I spend a lot of time in bed with my health, right? I do a lot of my work from bed. I do a lot of my art in bed, like my gesture drawings and things like that. I really try to go to my art space, though, to create, like, proper art, really to sit down and be in my sketchbook. Even if I'm not planning to create good art, and I'm expecting it to just be a bad art day, even, I try to be in my space. You know, I try to separate as much of my life in bed from, like, actual tasks that I want to complete and have a designated space for things. But I can't always do that. So I want to draw more characters in bed. I'm gonna stop smacking my mic one day. I think it's good for kind of a representation of how life feels at times when you have a chronic illness. It's nice, you know, to show people, like, doing things in bed that are kind of mundane tasks, but it feels like it's the only place in the world you can do it without it just killing you energy-wise to get up and do it, right? So I want to draw more bed scenes and things like that, so I'm going to probably do that more, and I wanted to practice it because I don't feel like I draw characters laying down ever, which is a whole nother thing I need to work on, and is another thing to my list of 50 billion things that I need to practice doing in the sketchbook that I've made since starting it on the channel, like, 2 months ago. But it's something I really want to do, and I wanted to really just mess with the hair, make it really layered, crazy. It did make her end up looking like she has the biggest eyebrow on the planet because I made it the same color as the base hair and I put that lock in front of the eye. She kind of looks like she has a unibrow. Fine by me. She still looks cute, so it's all good with me, right? But with that, the hair layers, they did a little bit better because I was layering in different places. And there's a lot more volume to the hair, so it wasn't doing as bad. I got maybe 5 to 6 layers in before it started kind of going over too many spaces too many times. On better paper, and by better I don't mean that the Talon's paper is bad. It's definitely some pretty good sketchbook paper. I really like the hue to it not being that kind of stark white. I really like a slight tone to my paper. It makes the white highlights look just that much nicer. Which, you know, I'm a highlight queen. It is my favorite. It's how I like things to be. And so, you know, I enjoy it. But, you know, it's like the paper that's, like, a little bit more prepared and, like, set to be used with paint and paint markers. A paper that's a little bit more of a hardy mixed media paper would handle it better and be able to take a lot more layers. But, you know, a sketchbook, I don't care about it that much. You know, I just want it to be good enough, right? So with that, that experiment was done, and I feel like it was moderately successful. I know about the limits of the paper, at least without really long drying periods in between. I think I'm gonna probably dedicate a good page to doing 50-50, like, how much marker can I layer in one given moment? How much pen can I layer while it's not completely dry? And then give it, like, really long resting periods and see how it goes. That's an experiment that's going to take some time, and I don't think it would be interesting for other people to watch me watching paint dry. But you know how it goes. Because I do think, well, for marker, it's really important for me. I do a lot of my blending. I do a lot of blending, so I need the marker to be wet, you know, so it can mix with each other. I don't do a lot of blending by layering, which was the next experiment. Oh, look at that. Excellent segue. The pen I'm using to fill in Eris right now is a water-based pen. And now I like to add my lighting last. I like to do some directional lighting based on everything, you know, darker under the pillow, right, where the head is, then on the top of her head, the pillow's darker right where the face is, then at the very edge, just a little bit, by darkening up the line art, right? But I like to add that finalized lighting, the actual mood lighting, at the very end. And I usually do that with a simple water-based pen or a watercolor or something that's not opaque. It's very transparent, and I layer it over everything at once. And so part of this whole experimentation process was doing a drawing just in the pen that I want to use for my lighting, seeing how I feel about it, kind of seeing the depth I can go to it on this paper without issues, because water-based media doesn't do as great as other medias in a sketchbook like this, you know? So just seeing about how far I could push it. And also just giving Eris a little bit of love as a character, drawing her sleeping. And she's adorable. You can't really tell her ear is under her head, but her ears are there. For people who don't know Eris, she has big, floppy, like down bunny style ears or things coming out of her head. I will put a little like tab so I know to put up a picture, a full illustration of her, so it makes sense. But yeah, that will be on screen. But she has these really big ears, so you can't really see them, so she kind of looks normal. And her hair streak is also red, not blue, but that's fine, because the lighting I wanted. But I did a full sample of this pen, its greatest depth color down there, and then I also added it to the ink drawing just so I could get a good kind of swath of how it works with the ink pen in this paper as it dried, because I've actually never used this pen with my my usual liner before, so I wanted to just test that since I was here. I wanted to add some fun lighting, just make it look nice and kind of cool toned-ish, a little more spooky, kind of desolate end of the day. But the most important one was seeing how it overlays over paint pens, because a lot of my finished illustrations are in paint pen or marker. In marker, you can just lay over another, like, lighter tone marker. But I generally use water-based stuff with marker too, right? And so it's important, because this is what I want to use for my lighting if I do painting, like bigger painting projects with fun lighting, which I want to do more of. I want to do more kind of intense mood lighting, dark nighttime scenes where you have to make it lighter. So I really needed to know, okay, so how does this lay over paint pen? Does it smear it too much? Is it really bad looking? Does it overlay nicely? Does it muddy out the colors too much? And my overall consensus is no. However, for an actual finished illustration, I'm giving my paint pens 24 to 48 hours to dry, not by any science, just by pure paranoia, stress, and speculation alone. I think it works. I would prefer to use maybe a slightly lighter blue for this process, but it did the mood lighting thing I needed it to do. It overlaid fine, and it didn't reactivate the paint too bad. However, I do really think that I need to let it dry if I want it to go as good as possible. So I think we're going to get more fun mood lighting. It did not do a horrible job. And, you know, the pen itself is transparent enough that it didn't cause any issues. So I'm generally happy with the result. But this was my big experiment that I needed to do because I have a lot of things planned that I really want to do. And being able to use these types of pens is important. And also, I feel like you should do this every time you start a new sketchbook because I don't know how materials will react with the paper, right? So I kind of needed to do it again anyway. But as per usual, I've talked too much. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. It means the world to me. If you created anything alongside me, please let me know. Tell me about it in the comments. I love to hear it. I love to see it. Like the video if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. I get it. I talk a lot. Subscribe if you want to see more of my content. There will be a video up in the card if you want to watch more of my stuff. And I think that's it. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are, and bye-bye.